For a lot of people outside of Canada, even Canadians, their first entry into Canadian hip-hop was Maestro Fresh West, Cardinal Official, and for the younger ones, Drake. Even though America, specifically NYC, is the birthplace of hip-hop, Canada has always been a major contributor. America being our big brother just south of the border with 10 times the population of Canada, it's always been mandatory that Canadian rappers get love in the US to maximize success. But what if I was to tell you that the first Canadian rap song wasn't actually made by a Canadian, and that the first rapper to put out a rap in Canada actually created OVO? Today we're going to examine the first rap song to come out of Canada and the man behind creating it to make Canadian history. What makes the story even more ironic is that the first Canadian rap song was actually a diss track. James Wesley McGee was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina on January 23, 1950. Fayetteville, North Carolina in 1950 was a deeply Southern city in transition, caught between the Jim Crow past and the postmodern world that was slowly reshaping America. Segregation was still very prevalent. Schools, buses, restaurants, and theaters were segregated by law, and the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision was still a few years away.
Funny, I asked him one time if he ever experienced racism, and he told me no. Which was weird. I was like, yo, you grew up in South Carolina, no racism. He's like, nothing crazy, like, no the hard R's or like no real like segregation vibes. He said but he said also like you kind of knew where to go already when you're in the South. Like you kind of, black people know where they're welcome and where they're not type thing back then, right? So, but yeah, so he was raised by his grandmother actually. So his parents split when he was young. And then his mom remarried, and I don't know, kind of like the first generation of kids kind of ended up at grandma's. Mm-hmm. So he was raised by his grandma. That's who he actually called Ma his whole life.
Black Americans used their strong connection to faith, and the church was a solace for James as he joined the choir at a young age.
He grew up in a jail in the South. If you're black in the South, you go to church, right? And like he just grew up always singing in the house, singing in the church. His dad was a singer and a bass player too, my grandfather. So he always kind of wanted to be like his dad. Even when his dad left, he continued on with like the musical dream and shit. And my dad's actually the only one of his siblings that really does music too, so it's pretty rare. But yeah, he came up singing in the church, always gospel first was his roots. Still, that's something he always wanted people to know. He was always a gospel singer first.
The church was the perfect place for James to escape the looming oppression, and the power of the gospel hymns was the perfect gateway into James's musical journey. As a teenager in the 60s, Fayetteville wasn't big enough for James's dreams, and he made his way north to Flint, Michigan.
First moved there, he was like, I believe like 16, 17. Mm-hmm. When he first got to Flint, he actually went there because that's where his dad had relocated to. So he ended up kind of like following his dad. He got married at 18 to not my mom, to another, his first wife. Mm-hmm. And he actually had, before he moved to Toronto, he had 3 kids with his wife and then 1 kid outside the marriage. So my 2 oldest sisters are 8 months apart from 2 different moms.
In the 1960s, there was a great migration of black people from the southern states like Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi to Michigan to join the automotive industry. Nearby Detroit being the home to Motown, Flint was definitely a hotbed for rising talent, and the nightlife was a hub for automotive workers to congregate and test the stage. Those same stages would foster James's musical evolution as he went from gospel to funk, disco, and jazz. Besides Detroit, another place that was not far from Flint, Michigan was the Canadian city of Toronto. The nightlife, along with the multicultural attitude of Toronto, attracted James, and he made frequent trips across the border until he ultimately moved to Toronto in 1974. Toronto was the perfect place for a black man in the 70s. It was a heavy immigration boom spawned by government programs that brought people from South Asian countries, Europe, Africa, and a heavy influx from the Caribbean.
Spread across the island, their emerald fields swaying under the Caribbean sun. Yet, beneath this picturesque landscape, the reality was far from idyllic. Thousands of Jamaicans toiled under the scorching sun, their sweat and strength feeding the insatiable demand for sugar in the British Empire. But as the plantation economy flourished, so did the spirit of resilience among the Jamaican people. Amidst the hardship, a glimmer of hope emerged. A new land, far north of the Caribbean Sea, beckoned. Canada, a country in the making, offered opportunities that were scarce in colonial Jamaica.
James hit the ground running, and the Toronto music scene embraced him immediately. He was a band leader and backup singer and played in bands like Giant Step, Salongo, and Crack of Dawn.
I went to a club in Toronto where my friend from high school was playing, who happened to be in the group that your dad was singing in, and she introduced us. Years later, she was also stood for us at our wedding. But at that time, he was with a really wonderful band with a great horn section, and they were called Salongo. He was in groups before that, but that was my first introduction to him. Mm-hmm. I think the group before that was called Giant Step. Salongo was big in Toronto and on the East Coast. Your dad joined a very popular Canadian group called Crack of Dawn. Crack of Dawn had a lot of hits, and most of them were from the East Coast, were from Nova Scotia, and so they were welcomed and loved there.
North Carolina, and he toured as a musician, and now let's get this straight. This is a man who was very versatile musically. He actually built his own recording studio, extremely gifted. Norman Otis Richmond referred to him as a genius. He actually knew this man. So J.W. McGee, aka Mr.Q, was a man who could sing, he could rap, he could play instruments. He was very versatile, and he was in a few different bands as well. One of the bands was called Salongo, and another one was called Crack of Dawn. I'm looking at my notes here, but because of those opportunities, what happened is when he came to Canada after leaving Michigan to tour, he actually met his wife here.
James spent many nights in the basement of Eglinton West recording studios, and it would be those very studios where Canada's first rap song was born. In September of 1979, Wonder Mike, Master G, and Big Bank Hanks recorded Rapper's Delight after being discovered by Sugar Hill Records founder Sylvia Robinson.
Here's Wonder Mike, Hank, and Master G, the Sugar Hill Gang.
Rapper's Delight became the first commercially successful hip-hop record ever released, reaching 36 on the Billboard charts. The track reverberated across America, and the buzz traveled all the way north of the border, where DJs like Ron Nelson would break the record.
No, it landed over here. Sugar Hill Records had a great distribution system that kind of made them unique with record labels. They were able to put records out extremely fast and with a lot of consistency. So that was one of the reasons why the record was so accessible. And it was, I think, as well picked up by domestic labels as well. So you had a Canadian pressing of an American song, but we got the imports on the Sugar Hill label and stuff like that. And like I said, the record was all over the place. It was, it was the first groundbreaker that broke rap open, right after disco died.
The Toronto scene had no real signs of hip-hop at this point, and the heavy Jamaican influence spawned multiple recording spaces in the city for people to record reggae and dancehall tracks, as well as R&B. Little Jamaica, aka Eglinton West, was a hotbed for budding talent, and it would be in those basement studios where the first Canadian hip-hop track was born. A young George Lewis sat in the studio thinking to himself, how could he not only join this new rap wave, but also one-up it? This is where James would come in. James had the perfect Southern accent, cadence, swag, and experience to handle the musical feat. George Lewis was hell-bent on cracking into this new thing called rap. He ran a store with his wife called Monica's Beauty, and they had a studio in the basement of the store where the magic would happen.
We have to give credit to another institution since we're talking about J.W. McGee here, Mr. Q. There's a record store that was very underground, and it was called Monica's Records. So Junior and Ken Lewis, and they were two of the young men, the sons of the owners who ran that record store. It was in a basement on Eglinton near Eglinton near Allen Road, basically. And very popular area for back then, especially for West Indians, a lot of activity, a lot of black people, kind of like they were one of the few record stores actually that you could find. So I used to shop at that store, and Junior was a crafty guy, one of the sons. He had this vision of making music, and he was very interested in reggae, but he was also a talent scout.
George would pop up at James's home at odd hours in the night, asking him if he could come to the studio and record. After multiple attempts to coax James into rapping, as well as the $300 payment, he decided, why not?
At Monica's Beauty Supplies and Records on Eglinton Avenue, and George would come and get your dad, like even in the middle of the night. Let's go to the studio. I guess the hours were, it might have been a little cheaper to do it at night, actually. But whenever they could get booked into the studio, they would go and put down some music. We were down to, you know, the maybe last few cents, trying to decide what was of most importance, and like really scrambling for a few cents. And George Lewis comes to the house. We lived in a flat. Mm-hmm. George knocks on the room that would have been the living room had it been set up like it was a duplex. Yeah, was our bedroom. We used that for the bedroom. So George, so as not to disturb the people that lived upstairs, would knock on our bedroom window. And at that time of the morning, to have somebody knock on your window is pretty scary. Mm-hmm. Right. And George came with, "Come on, you want to go in the studio, Jay? Want to make some money right now?" And he came with what was a large amount of money to us at the time. I think it was $300, if I remember correctly.
My dad used to just be in and out of there and just putting shit down for money. Like, so Monica and them were paying him money. Mm. You see all the credits on the record back there, but yeah, they were just giving him money. My dad's just trying to stay afloat and eat and make connections, so he's just over there putting down records, not thinking nothing of it. But it's funny because these guys are shipping these records off to Jamaica, the UK. Like, I don't even realize till later how crazy that connect was. I was telling my sister the other day, I'm like, yo, they were doing some wild shit and like making hella money off of these artists, and these artists don't even realize these guys are, and they're printing up all the vinyls to sell everything. Like,
the results would be a response to Rappers Delight with a diss track for the ladies, Ladies Delight.
I heard about sugar, heard about you. Let me say they got no skill. All these guys can make it rap, all go somewhere and shit they got.
Even though James had recorded the first rap song to be released from Canada and the first diss song, his main goal was not being a rapper. Rap was extremely new and looked at as a fad and even lowbrow by many music lovers.
You know what I mean? Nobody knew it would become this multi-billion-dollar industry. Nobody gave it a chance. The reason why most of my friends right now are very few, it's because when I was playing hip-hop music and sticking to it, all my DJ friends I'm talking about, 90% of them scorned hip-hop. It was too hardcore for them. They went to R&B. They went to the 19 and over audience that likes to socialize and drinks, nice people, dress friendly and everything. That's a safe conservative.
It's actual real music they're singing.
Exactly.
To preserve his name and image in R&B, he took on the moniker of Mr.Q. It's believed that the Q was a nod to the legendary producer Quincy Jones, who James was heavily influenced by.
Didn't want his name to be Mr. Q, the rapper, J. McGee, R&B. You know, it didn't mean anything. It was just Mr. Q, a letter that was unusual. I guess he could have gone with Z, but Q. Although, you know, that's what I know. I wonder if it had a little Quincy in it.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing. Yeah, because I know that was a big influence of his too. So,
Ladies Delight started getting played on college radio stations throughout Toronto, including CKLN on the Fantastic Voyage show hosted by Foundation DJ Ron Nelson.
Unfortunately not. I didn't even know he was Canadian back then. The record label was Canadian, but there was like no Canadian rappers that had any marketing or promotion or, you know, identity, profile, image. And his style was sounding just like all the other American records that were coming out, which wasn't a lot at that time, that featured rap music. And anything that you heard was an incorporation of rap with R&B, a very strong R&B, almost disco influence, but a lot of experimentation, a lot of things were going through the pipes that, you know, in a more competitive world would not, but people are just happy to hear rap. And if If you could put a record out quickly back then you got something going on. So
Mr. Q would record a few more rap songs, and he didn't stop at the one shot. And over the fall of 1979, he unleashed a barrage. He released tracks like DJ Style, Party Party, Rapping Time, and Party Rap. The last one, Party Rap, was a gritty nod to the Mississauga train derailment that happened in November of 1979, a chlorine-spewing catastrophe that evacuated 200,000 people west of Toronto.
Here is a special news report. A cloud of deadly chlorine gas is leaking from a derailed tanker car west of Toronto. 25 cars left the tracks before midnight last night in the city of Mississauga. Several of the cars exploded and are still burning out of control. A massive evacuation is underway. We have a report from Michael Vaughn.
Life's currents pulled James homeward in 1999. Back in Flint, he traded Toronto's hustle for the church pews, directing choirs and lifting voices in gospel praise.
but you know, I guess in summary, this guy was like, we don't want to mistake him. He put out a lot of good records in the early stages of, you know, our music, and WBLK was playing a lot of it, and that gave him some great credibility. But he was a lover of all kinds of black music, and he had the ability to rap as well. I don't think he knew when he put out that record that it would be celebrated today as the first time that a Canadian rapper was ever on wax.
Music remained his ministry, a bridge from his Fayetteville beginnings. Then came 2016, the Flint water crisis, a poison seeping into homes and hearts. Jay channeled his fury into a track called Don't Drink the Water.
You're from city full of poor people feeling thrown away, trying to make ends meet, trying to see a better day. Flint people around the world looking, shaking their heads, cause they heard about us drinking water full of lead. If you ain't been here, baby, you ain't got a clue. There's a whole lot more than what you see on the news.
A raw protest rap, his first in decades, calling out the neglect with the same fire that sparked Ladies' Delight. At this point, hip-hop in Canada is not exclusive to a handful of rappers. Hell, the biggest rapper in the world is from Toronto. Drake is known worldwide, and so is his OVO brand. But was Drake, 40, and Oliver the first OVO in Canada? It is said that in the 90s, Mr. Q started his own OVO, which stood for Our Very Own.
Yeah, like he was the first. He did it first.
Yeah. I don't know if you know any of this, but I kind of want to talk about this too before we end it. The OVO thing, that was something he started. I remember because I would just go everywhere with him all the time to all these studios and all these places, and I remember that logo and that name and that brand, Our Very Own, was his. That's right. That was his label and his thing, and he was proud of it, and he was starting it up, and OVO was the pseudonym for it. Am I correct?
Right. That's absolutely right, and that was it. Our Very Own. It was like family. You know, he was always trying to do things that he could include or leave to family, and it was ours. It was our family. It was our very own.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Our Very Own records. So, like I said, my dad moved around to a lot of different studios, and like he used to bring it. My dad would just drag me to all these different studios all the time. So, there's one guy, I think it was called Silver Birch, if I'm not mistaken. It was on like Lakeshore. And so my dad believes that Drake had been in and out of that studio too. But at that time, this might have been 2090, anywhere between 98 and 2000.
Okay.
He would be in and out of there. And he had a record label called Our Very Own. So my dad was coming into like owning all of his masters at that time, and he had switched to gospel music. So he just wanted to kind of have a label to have everything under. Mm-hmm. And Our Very Own was like his thing was he wanted to have a legacy and kind of leave, hoping to start collecting royalties and leave some shit to his family. So the whole Our Very Own thing was like the family's, you know, income, and any money that my dad made off music, he wanted it to just go into this pot for the family. So that's where Our Very Own came from, OVO. I love Drake, and I got a lot of respect for Drake, but Drake's been known to come around and take a few things here. I don't remember early Drake sounded like Jay Diggs. I don't remember young Jay Diggs from Toronto, but
salute
like
Jay Diggs.
Yeah, Drake. And listen, Drake's made a whole career of doing it, and he's had success doing it. So whoever does it best wins. To me, my dad came to me with that whole thing, and I was like, bro, you even could be right, but like, this guy's the biggest rapper in Canada. This guy's opened such a door for Canada. It's like silly to even. You know what I mean?
So wait a minute. Your dad was pissed at one point?
My dad made a diss record, bro. My dad made it in his like 60s, nigga. Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, I was making music back in Regent Park, and dreaming that one day I'd be a big old star. I came up with the title, little did I know that one day I'd be fighting for my OVO. OVO's just letters, but some bomb letters. OVO's just letters, but they steal them if you let them. OVO's just letters, but some bomb letters. OVO's just letters, but they sweet if you can get them. OVO is just some letters, but they bomb though.
He was a brave one. He stood on it, but he believed that because I think Drake used to go through that studio. I have a mutual friend with Drake that kind of told me the same thing, but I'm not trying to be messy, and I don't know if he did. He did. Like I said, there's no proving that shit, and OVO is what it is now. Like, you're the best man win. It's just an acronym, bro. It's not. I mean, the very own part is the part that, to me, was like, you might have something there, but you're gonna sue the guy.
With that being said, there is still no confirmation that Drake and his team got the OVO from the legendary Mr. Q. On January 8th, 2021, at 70 years old, James Wesley McGee, aka Mr. Q, left the world in the physical as so-called COVID-related illnesses claimed him quietly. Many rappers followed to lay the foundations for Canadian hip-hop. Greats like Michie Me, Maestro Fresh West, Kish, Devon, HDV, Ghetto Concept, and many more followed to present Canadian hip-hop to the world before Cardinal Official, Socrates, Choclair, and Drake.
Slick Rick did his version of that. You know what I'm saying? That's Burt Bacharach. He's one of the greatest songwriters. Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I want my songs to transcend. Do you get what I'm saying?
Timeless music.
Timeless, man. See what I'm saying? So another one, like I said, don't make records, make history.
With two countries that share the same borders, it baffles me sometimes how much we discuss our differences, with myself being included. Hopefully this has been able to shed some light on where our differences can be celebrated and maybe realize that we're more similar than you think.
We love hip hop.